Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Nanmu release to take a look at, and not only that, but we actually have the limited edition version of the brand new Spinosaurus, and as you can probably already tell by the amazing image here on the front of the box, we have a totally different sculpt, totally different positioning for the Spinosaurus this time compared to the previous version, and I really like this one because it's kind of like recreating that iconic pose from the Spinosaurus right before it chases everyone down there at the fence, like after the reuniting of both groups of people on Sorna in Jurassic Park 3, and they kind of hear like the ringtone, they turn around, and there's the Spinosaurus just kind of standing there staring at them. They perfectly recreated the pose of that very ominous scene in Jurassic Park 3 here with this limited edition version, so I was really excited about this one. Knew instantly from the moment I had seen it that I really wanted to get my hands on this particular version, and you can see that the box looks absolutely awesome, just like the box looked for the more standard versions we previously had taken a look at here on the channel. Up here on the top, you can again see a little bit of information about it. Again, the Nanmu logo on the side, and then here on the back we have a beautiful image showing off the Spinosaurus in all of its glory, and it looks incredibly cool here on this box image here on the back. And then we actually have, yes, down here, oh, I gotta flip it over. I did remember seeing a few more images of it, so you can now see on the bottom of the box, we've got a few more images showing off the Spinosaurus as well. So really excited after seeing the last two versions that I've just reviewed a day or two ago. I'm really excited to see this one, so let's pop it out of the box right now. So first of all, we've got a base, and the base is super cool, and recently we had a base that kind of had the Tyrannosaurus with a Spinosaurus skeleton on it, and now we've got the Spinosaurus with a Tyrannosaurus skeleton on it, and this is obviously kind of like an ode to Jurassic Park 3, where the Spinosaurus kills off a T-Rex early in the film. I think that's probably the inspiration behind that really cool base. And then on top of that, we've got our absolutely beautiful looking Spinosaurus here. Let's get it on the base. That's pretty easy to snap in there and just slide it on, turn it around very carefully. It's actually really quite large. I think this one's definitely a little bit bigger than the previous version, but there we go. We've got our Spinosaurus standing here looking super cool. Again, it really does perfectly recreate that positioning for the Spinosaurus in that moment of the film. I think they absolutely nailed it as far as the sculpt goes. And as hard as it might be to believe, I think the paint job of this version is actually somehow even better than the paint job of the previous two standard versions we've just reviewed. So, without further ado, let's jump straight to a closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Spinosaurus, you can see yet again they absolutely nailed it as far as the tones of color and the actual paint application on this version, just like we saw in the standard version recently. You can see all sorts of really nice different tones of like reddish and kind of orangish, like red-orange tones of color up here in this snout, and they smoothly transition back and forth very realistically. And they also got that kind of darker outline perfectly that kind of follows along the outer edge of those reddish and red-orange tones on the face of the Spinosaurus. And you can also see that they've darkened the color around the eye, also again exactly as we see the Spinosaurus in the film. And I love the tone of color for the eye, that really nice green, and it pops so nicely here on this version, especially since the eye has been darkened so beautifully there, and you can really see the eye almost looks like it's straight up glowing. You can see they've also sculpted out and highlighted the nostrils perfectly here on our Spinosaurus, and everything has that really nice dark wash, so it's highlighting the nostrils beautifully because of that, but also highlighting the skin texture perfectly as we move through the top of the head of the Spinosaurus. I think you can really see how nicely done they have highlighted the detailing there with that dark wash. I also love, which something I don't really recall on the more standard versions, it looks like we have a little bit extra paint application running along the lower jaws. We have quite a bit of kind of like light gray striping leading down, and of course quite a few other tones of like grays and browns within that area. It looks really nice. And then of course that reddish tip of the lower jaw right there. You can see the teeth as well look phenomenal as far as the sculpting goes. You've got kind of like a yellowish tone, and it looks incredibly realistic. Again, Nanmu has probably the most realistic teeth and insides of the mouth of their figures more so than I think anybody else out there currently making dinosaur models. And you can also see the tongue sticking up in there. Very nicely done, just kind of resting but moving slightly. And it also has a really nice tone of color to it, kind of like a nice light pink. We can't really get in there too well because the jaw is not articulated, but we can see it in there regardless, and everything seems to have a very nice gloss coat, helping to add even more realism to the model. As you lead back, you start to see, again, some phenomenal looking skin texture on the Spinosaurus. The detailing is honestly off the charts on this model. You can also see the ears sculpted out beautifully. As we lead back, you see that light gray stripe out from the face and start to run down the course of the neck. You also have those larger scoot-like scales running along the top of the dinosaur, and some really nice creasing right there in the neck region, showing off the movement of the dino. You can also see the throat down here, as well as lots of really nice texturing to the skin and kind of skin wrinkles and creasing and everything throughout the course of the Spinosaurus, as well as a super smooth transition from the primary body color down into that light gray of the underside. You can also see how the light gray that comes from the face here kind of stripes down, and again, that looks exactly as it looks on the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. As you lead down the course of the back of the neck here, you see how we have that kind of like red-orange, and then as it reaches the sail area, we get a much darker tone of red that runs up and over the top of the sail beautifully. And then just like we saw on the more standard version, we have those really nice tones of color here within the sail, as we have all sorts of variations of whites, blues, kind of like orangish tones, and all sorts of really, really nice looking coloration there. And again, the design looks pretty much exactly as I recall it from the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. As you lead down here, you can see again some phenomenal looking skin texture, some nice creasing and wrinkling there, showing off the movement of the arm yet again. Really nice muscle definition moving down the course of the arm, and all types of tones of coloration here, very subtle transitions back and forth between colors and designs with kind of like some striping effects and stuff leading down the arms. You can see the hands are a little bit more relaxed than we saw on the standard version. The fingers are kind of dangling a little bit. We do have that kind of pinkish tone there in the fingers though, just like we saw in the standard version. And yet again, the nails are painted and sculpted beautifully. You can see lots of really nice fine detail to the nails, and they're painted with kind of like a black, but then they also have some variations of browns that lead out, so it adds some nice realism as far as that goes. And they do as well have a nice gloss coat to them. You can also see the beautiful detailing of the fingers with the really nice scoots running down those fingers. As we lead back here into the stomach region, again, the skin texture looks incredible, but look at the many different tones of color. Really, really super subtle coloration changes here in the stomach region, as we have different variations of grays, browns, as well as it looks like maybe like close to some blacks, like really light blackish tones. It looks incredibly cool. We continue to have that light gray stripe running down the side of the Spinosaurus, again striping down as it does so. We have those scoots that run here along the top, that more armored type of a look to the Spinosaurus as we lead down into the hip region. And again, the thigh is massive, and there's just a plethora yet again of coloration there, really subtle colors in the thigh. And look at again how nice the skin texture looks. That is absolutely gorgeous. And we do have again that grayish tone running down the front as well as the back of the thigh. It's insanely smooth as far as the way it's applied, like incredibly realistic. You've got the kneecap right there. As you lead down, you have a very nice bulging calf muscle. Again, you can see all sorts of coloration picking up as you lead down into the foot. You can see the foot is kind of like up on the toes, like it's maybe about to run, it's about to take a step and head toward Alan and his group, but you can also see that the foot sculpt looks really nice, and the nails are yet again painted just like we saw on the hands there. You can see the dew claw, and all of the nails and everything have a very nice gloss coat yet again. We also have those kind of like pinkish tones there, those very dark pinkish tones in the toes. And then as you lead up here, again, you see some more really nice sculpting and detailing, as well as some more really nice coloration as we lead out the length of the tail. The tail is not doing anything super crazy or anything. You can see we end in a nice reddish tip, but it does have a really nice kind of an elegant looking curve to it on top of everything. And we continue to have the sail leading down, starting to diminish, and we have that nice reddish tone that runs along the top of the tail. The underside sports some fantastic detailing, as well as, again, some really subtle color difference. You can see like different variations of grays as well as browns down here on the underside of the Spinosaurus as well, and lots of really nice looking skin detail as you move here along the underside of the Spinosaurus. And as we very carefully turn it around, you could take a look at the opposing side of the head, and again, how beautiful the paintwork is of the head of the Spinosaurus. I don't know that I've ever seen a more perfect interpretation of the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus as far as the sculpt, but also the paint job here than I see on this particular version from Nanmu. That is just expertly done paintwork right there in the face of the Spinosaurus, and perfectly replicates what we had just seen on the initial side, and all of it is just so smooth as far as the application goes. Like, it doesn't get more realistic looking than that. As you lead back, you see the same style of detailing and sculpt that we pretty much saw on the initial side. Again, that nice gray stripe running along as we lead down into the body. You can see the arm is in a slightly different position compared to what we had just seen on the opposing side, but yet again somewhat relaxed. It's not really doing anything too crazy or menacing, but it also looks great over here. And then you lead up into the stomach region, and again you can see more of that beautiful looking detailing, so many skin wrinkles, so much movement shown, as well as that dark wash which highlights all of the skin texture perfectly on this Spinosaurus. And then as you move back here, you can again see the big thigh that we have here, the hip bone a little bit. And you can also see that this leg is a little further forward than the opposing leg, and it's planted a lot more as this leg is starting to take a step up, kind of leaning up. This leg is fully planted on the ground, which is the leg that contains the peg for us to apply to the base. You can also see the foot sculpt is absolutely gorgeous over here. And then we lead out the length of the tail again. Nothing super crazy going on as far as the positioning of the tail, but the paintwork and sculpt work looks absolutely awesome. So definitely, I would say the best version of the Spinosaurus from Nanmu. And that's taking into consideration the older initial release as well as the newer kind of standard releases. This is my personal favorite right here. It's also made of a resin. It's definitely a lot harder and a lot heavier than the other one was. So I would imagine this one would be a lot easier to damage if you dropped it. So if you do happen to acquire this limited edition version, just be very careful with it because, again, being made of a resin, it's definitely a lot more fragile than the more mainline standard versions. And then we've got the base, and the base again sports some really nice tones of browns and stuff throughout, really nice earthy textures. You've got some stones and stuff, but you also have a plethora of Tyrannosaur bones here. As you can see, we've got the skull and everything as we move and hit the backdrop, but you can also see as we lead down, we've got basically like the vertebrae and everything, the rib cage showing here, as the dinosaur obviously has consumed this Tyrannosaurus a little while ago because it's kind of implanted into the mud and the dirt and stuff. So we must be, as far as this particular base goes, I would imagine near the Spinosaurus den, and its home is we have also got the nice footprint there to put our Spinosaurus into, and you can see the detailing of the actual skeletal remains here is really nice, and they've done a great job of painting it in a way that it's really weathered and looks like it's been sitting here for quite some time. So some beautiful realism on top of everything. You've also got the other footprint over there, but absolutely phenomenal looking base. I would say probably the perfect base to go with a Spinosaurus model like this. And then the underside shows us exactly how many we have as far as the limited edition goes. We had 498, and this is 434, so I guess I was cutting it a little bit close as far as acquiring this one, but you can see otherwise, though, the underside of the base looks pretty much like your standard Nanmu base, except we have the limited edition number again on the underside, but definitely an awesome base for an amazing Spinosaurus. And then just like your normal Nanmu model, to apply it to the base, you've got the peg right there, and then it goes down there into the base of the Spinosaurus. And it's a little bit different, kind of, I guess. I shouldn't say it's like your average Nanmu model, because normally you don't have the peg on the foot. You have like a peg on the base, and you would put the Spinosaurus onto there, because your normal Nanmu model can stand entirely on its own, whereas this one has the peg in the foot. With it being a resin, that's where they put the peg on this version. But man, is that ever awesome. Like, that is probably one of the coolest visuals of a Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus I could imagine right there. And it sits perfectly on the base. But as far as a size goes, for a length, this one is at about 19¼ inches, or around 49 centimeters. And then when we get a height on it, of course, this is with it up on the base. To the back of the neck, you're looking at about 8½ inches, or just shy of around, I'd say a little over 21½, closing in on 22 centimeters. And then to the top of the sail, about 9¼ inches, or around 23½, almost 24 centimeters. For a size comparison, There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Nanmu Soul of the Dragon limited edition Spinosaurus, and you can definitely see it's very large, definitely very impressive, and the Papo T-Rex easily stands underneath the throat there of the Spinosaurus, and obviously you can take it right under there, it's not going to catch. So that shows you again that the size of this Spinosaurus is really quite impressive. And then for a size comparison that I was actually really excited to see, we have all three of the different Nanmu versions of the Spinosaurus here next to each other. The limited edition version is the one in the middle. You can also see the original version that is underneath the throat of the limited edition version. And then you can also see on top of that the newer, more standard version over here to our left. And I think this actually shows you that the limited edition version is slightly larger, or at least slightly taller. And I think that might just be due to the positioning maybe of the Spino, because it's kind of standing more upright. But overall body mass, it also kind of feels like it is a little bit bigger than the standard version. And I think just looking at the head sculpts, you can see the head sculpts are almost a little bit different as far as size goes. Like, they look the same sculpt-wise, but I really feel like the Soul of the Dragon version of the Spinosaurus is a little bit bigger than the more standard version. But we're actually going to flip them around here, kind of get them face to face to get a better idea of the size. So there are both of the newest versions, the standard version to the right, the limited edition version to the left. And now that they're kind of right face to face there, I think you can really see again that there is a little bit of a size difference between the two. And the Soul of the Dragon version is a little bit larger than our standard version of the Spinosaurus here from Nanmu. Then for another size comparison, we have the Papo Spinosaurus here next to the Nanmu one, which you can obviously see. There's no real comparison as far as a size goes here, but for another comparison, we have the W Dragon Spinosaurus next to the Soul of the Dragon Nanmu version, and you can see that these two are a fairly similar size overall, but yet again, I think the Nanmu one wins it as far as the size goes, as it is just a little bit bigger than even the W Dragon version. And then when it comes to those limited edition versions of the Nanmu releases, we've got that limited edition version of the male T-Rex with female coloration, which was like their 5th anniversary release, next to the Spino here. And this is the T-Rex that came with the deceased Spinosaurus on the base, next to the Spinosaurus that comes with the deceased Tyrannosaurus on the base. And again, if you happen to have the Once and Future King Rex, this is the same sculpt, just a different paint job, but you can see roughly again how they size up next to each other right here. So this brand new Nanmu Soul of the Dragon Spinosaurus, the limited edition version, is absolutely gorgeous, and I am over the moon excited to have this version. I was actually terrified at one point that I wasn't going to be able to get it, because when I had actually seen that the others had gone up for sale, they went up for sale on Big Bad Toy Store, and then almost immediately they were just like sold out everywhere. I just could not find a listing for this one at all. Luckily, I was just kind of counting the chickens before they hatched, I guess, because it actually hadn't gone up for pre-order on most sites. It really only went up on Big Bad Toy Store at that time. So I had panicked a little bit thinking I was going to miss it, but luckily it did go up for pre-order on Lana Time Shop, and I grabbed it straight away from there, and boy am I ever happy that I did, because it is again a phenomenal release from Nanmu here. And on top of that, it actually sold out really quickly from there, and pretty much everywhere else as well. So as of right now, as far as I'm aware, I believe this one is sold out entirely. I've been trying to find a link for a few people actually to grab it, and I can't seem to find any anymore. If you happen to know of anybody still selling this, let me know in the comments section, and then maybe some of the people that are looking for it can still find it, but as of now I can't find a link to it. But the sculpt is incredible on this, again just as highly detailed as the standard release, but a totally different pose and a slightly larger size for this version. The paint job, I would say, might actually look even a little bit better than the standard release as well. Like, there's just a little more coloration to the lower jaw, and I can pick up on potentially maybe even a little bit more coloration through the course of the body. And I don't know if that's just me looking into it and thinking, wow, this thing is just so magical. Looking at it, it looks like there's more color. I can definitely tell there's a little bit more designing and tones of color in the lower jaw, but the rest of the body might just be me looking a little bit too far into it. But again, the coloration and paintwork of this is spot on to the way the Spinosaurus appears in Jurassic Park 3. So Nanmu completely knocked the paint job out of the park. Easily their best paint job on a Spinosaurus yet. You will see on this round of Spinosaurus figures on both the limited and standard versions, but also the sculpt of this one I love, because I always loved that pose of the Spinosaurus as it was just kind of standing there behind them, just waiting for them to turn around, notice them before it attempted to kill them, as we heard the ringtone going off that we know that the Spinosaurus now was containing in its stomach. But again, the positioning of this one is exactly as it looked in that moment when they turn around and see the Spinosaurus. They really nailed the pose of this. All of the movement of that pose is shown perfectly in the sculpt. And the base as well is really cool. Even though it doesn't exactly show the terrain from the moment that we see the Spino standing like this, it does still give us that kind of like throwback to the Spinosaurus killing Tyrannosaurs on Sorna. And obviously this one's been dead for a little while and feasted upon, but it definitely is kind of a cool idea to have a Rex skeleton here on the base for the Spinosaurus. So as a whole, this is just an insanely awesome release, and I am very happy to say that as far as this style collectible goes, this version here is definitely my best and my favorite version of the Jurassic Park 3 Spino in my collection. So again, if you are interested, keep searching around. Maybe somebody will throw some up on eBay, or if anybody finds a link, definitely leave it down in the comments section so anybody else that missed it can still grab it. It is really worth the purchase. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.